Hi, and welcome to another Shane Plays role-playing game product review. Appreciate you watching. Remember, you can find a companion blog post at shaneplays.com that'll have more information, and you can kind of look at everything I'm talking about. It also has a photo gallery, so make sure to check that out, and that'll be linked in the video description on YouTube. So here we go. Gothic horror has returned to D&D. The Master of Ravenloft is having guests for dinner, and you are invited. So begins the latest D&D adventure, 5th edition adventure, Curse of Strahd. There it is. Looks great, as usual. You know, all these 5th edition books are looking good. This is an adventure, not a source book, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. You know, there is a lot of information on Strahd and Barovia, both the land and the village, Castle Ravenloft, all that, but it's not a source book. This is an adventure. In fact, it's a retelling of the original I6 Ravenloft D&D adventure from way back in 1983. Now they've expanded it, brought a lot more background information to Strahd, you know, the vampire wizard, vampire lord, and the lands and the realm, and they consulted with Tracy and Laura Hickman, who are the original designers of the Ravenloft module from 1983, to do that. And it's from lead designer, I'm referring to my notes here, lead designer Chris Perkins, who is establishing himself as, you know, really a major personality in role playing, especially for D&D. I'd say he's kind of almost this era's Gary Gygax, and I know a lot of people might take exception with that, but I think he's extremely well known and extremely influential on the hobby. It's also has designers Adam Lee, Richard Witters, and Jeremy Crawford all involved, of course. And there's, you know, a credits listed in here, and there's just a ton of people who made this happen. So there it is again, looking good. So, but you know, there's like I said, it's based on the original adventure, so that's in here. It's 5th edition version of that. But there's so much more, and including, you know, new light, if you will. It's casting new light on the wizard vampire and all-around nasty guy Strahd von Zarovich. I believe I'm saying that right. So he's the big bad guy, almost sort of the Dracula figure, the tragic yet very evil figure that is behind everything in Curse of Strahd. So this book is officially going to release on March 15th. I'm recording this on March 6th. My friendly local game store and other friendly local game stores that are in the Wizards Preferred Network receive their copies on March 4th, which is Friday. So Curse of Strahd is intended for 4 to 6 players, levels 1 through 10, and it includes a mini adventure called Death House, which can advance characters to 3rd level right off the bat. So it's kind of, you know, they're kind of saying, look, before they really get out into Barovia and the main areas and lands and adventures of Curse of Strahd, they really need to be 3rd level. So there's an appendix in here that is a mini adventure, and you can also get that for free online. And that link should be in the video notes. If it's not, it's on the blog post at shaneplays.com. So make sure to check that out. And another note, you know, I like the free PDF mini adventure of Death House that's included in here, but you can get it for free from Wizards of the Coast as a PDF. Again, look for that link in the video description. If it's not there, go to the companion blog post on shaneplays.com. I like that because there's enough there, story-wise and atmosphere-wise, to give both DMs and players an idea of, do you like Ravenloft? Is this how you want to play? Because it's a little bit different from your traditional, you know, Forgotten Realms or Tolkien-esque kind of Greyhawk or whatever, you know, hack and slash, sword and sorcery, fantasy kind of adventure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I like Ravenloft and how all this stuff feels, and I also like the traditional stuff, but it's not going to be for everybody. Although I think most people who play it will enjoy it. In fact, Ravenloft itself, the original module from the 80s, is one of the most beloved and classic modules of them all. So, you know, if you're kind of hesitant, you know, give it a shot. You know, especially if you have a free mini adventure that can take people to 3rd level, you can check out to see if you like what Ravenloft's all about. So here's some numbers to break down, you know, this book and this adventure. The cover price is $49.95. Yep, $49.95, and that's not unusual with the 5th edition D&D books. Now, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those online have it much cheaper. In fact, I think Amazon has it listed for like $31, and I think Barnes and Noble online has it for something similar. Now, you won't get it till March 15th, but you can save almost $20. Well, actually, you will save about $20 after tax. So, something to keep in mind. But the book price, the list price, is $49.95. Not out of line with the majority of the 5th edition source books, and a couple of the adventures, have been the same. It's at 250. There's 256 pages, 15 chapters. There's 6 appendices. There's a foreword by Tracy Hickman that I like quite a bit. He was one of the original designers of Ravenloft. He was also one of the core people that did Dragonlance, him and Laura Weiss. And I love what he says. He says, now we invite you again as our guest to pass through the Svalak woods, if you dare. For here the romance is tragically dangerous, and a true monster smiles at your approach. And there's some interesting stuff in the forward where he's talking about, the modern take on vampires is sort of the sexy romantic. They can be redeemed, and he's like, no, this is evil. This is bad stuff. This is a very bad, almost analogy for being in a relationship that has abuse. So Strahd is a bad guy, and he really reinforces that. So there's multiple handouts for the players here in the back, which is cool. There's some handouts here that you can copy and hand out, like an invitation, some pages from a journal, Strahd's journal, his tome, if you will. And I really like that they put handouts in here, because like Out of the Abyss, I thought could have used handouts, especially there were so many NPCs you have to keep up with at the beginning of Out of the Abyss. Handouts for that would have been really handy for both the DM and the players. In fact, for me running Out of the Abyss, I made my own handouts. And if you're curious what I used, there's an Out of the Abyss notes that YouTube series that I'm doing as I run it, and I think the first episode in that YouTube series talks about that in a link where you can find your own handouts, or to make your own. So I like that. And then this was, I like the handouts. I think that's cool. And then this is cool. In the back of it, now you have to pull it out. So purist, I can envision some people buying 2 copies of this book, one that they can, pull the map out of. It's kind of in there, and you perforate it out. And then other, 2 copies, one they can keep with the map in it, and one they can tear the map out. Now, of course, I teared it out. But this is cool. I mean, this is a big, oversized map. And on one side is Castle Ravenloft. Is that upside down? Yeah, that's upside down. And on the other side is Barovia, the land of Barovia, and some of the areas of interest. And then, of course, there's other maps inside the book as well. But man, I thought that was cool. I love getting this fold-out map. I'd love to get more of that, in future adventures and source books and that sort of thing. So, that's cool. So that's what you get in it as far as how big the book is, the kind of stuff in it. And so I really like that a lot. Now, rules-wise, as far as game rules, I'm not talking about, here's what's in this room and here's the maps. I'm talking about actual rules that may add to D&D as a whole. You don't get a whole lot. You do get one new character background, the quote-unquote haunted one. And that's just somebody who's, they're haunted by something from their past. And so you can use that as a character background. There's this thing called a Monster Hunters pack, which is kind of like the Ravenloft version of a, there's not many virgins in Ravenloft, and if they are, I imagine they get sacrificed. I don't know. Anyway, that's a tangent. You get a Monster Hunters pack, which is kind of like an Adventurers pack, or something similar to that. It costs a certain amount of gold pieces, and it has some stuff in it that might be handy for fighting, monsters in such a gothic dread realm. And then you do get, there's a few magic items that are listed, most of which are kind of essential to the plot, stuff you need to find in your quest to defeat Strahd. And then you do get, there's a lot of NPCs that are listed with stat blocks and backgrounds, and then there's you get a lot of new monsters, which I think are cool. You know, there's some neat monsters in here. Let's see, you have a were-raven. Well, that's cool. I don't know if that might have popped up in D&D before, but I think it's neat. You get Strahd zombies. They're versions of Strahd's, you know, his version of zombies. You have brooms of animated attack and animated armors and a guardian portrait and all kinds of cool gothic kind of NPCs and monsters that you can use either in this or, you know, other adventures. So there's no new classes or spells or any of that stuff, no new factions, if you will. So this is very much an adventure. It's not a source book. Although there's a lot of location and background information included for Barovia and for Strahd and his past, but it's not a source book. Okay, the Sword Coast Adventures Guide was a source book about the Sword Coast and the Forgotten Realms. Curse of Strahd is an updated version of the original Ravenloft module with a lot more stuff added to it, some background information, some locations, some encounters, characters, creatures, but it's not a source book. I just want to make that clear. It's not a source book. Another thing that's kind of unique to Ravenloft and Barovia since it first came out back in the 80s is the Tarokka deck, the Tarokka cards, which is kind of Ravenloft's version of the tarot. And it's essential to Curse of Strahd. It makes it in Curse of Strahd. They didn't get rid of the Tarokka deck. It's essential for both the gothic atmosphere that helps to reinforce and also to randomize each playthrough. So just like the original module back in the 80s, Curse of Strahd does the same thing. Before you play it, before you ever sit down with the characters, you randomly draw some cards, and based on that, it determines story elements, like maybe where Strahd can always be found, where a helpful NPC ally, who that might be, and some items that you need to find to help you destroy Strahd. And those are randomized. So every time you play it, they're going to be in different locations. So now you can, there's a appendix in here that lists all the tarot cards, the Tarokka cards. Gives you all the artwork. So I mean, if you wanted, you could photocopy this and, you know, put them on stock and make your own little cards. It also lists every card. It's got a little tables in here listing every card and what they mean. So, for example, the Rogue, which is it's the Master of Coins card. It represents anyone for whom money is important, those who believe money is the key to their success. Just as an example. I'll read one more. The Priest is the Master of Glyphs card, and it represents enlightenment, those who follow a deity, a system of values, or a higher purpose. So just a couple of examples. I think there's 54 cards total, and you can use a regular deck of cards. I like that they did that. I'm sure that, you know, they've done that in previous versions of Ravenloft and Strahd type, or, you know, adventures over the past few decades. But if you want to, you can. Gale Force 9 has an official D&D Tarokka deck, like an actual deck of these cards. It's coming out in April. I think it's about $10, and that's linked in the blog post at shaneplays.com. So, and there's a couple of points in the game where you can actually do a Tarokka reading for the players. Now, it's not the same reading that you did before the game starts. You don't want to give them the same one, because then they could go look at it. Oh, I know that this is where stuff's at, and blah blah blah. So you don't want to do that, but you can give them readings to add to the gothic atmosphere of everything. So, and the cards look very cool. The you know, the artwork and the feel and everything. I mean, the whole thing is just suffused with that sort of gothic feel that you would expect. The book looks great. In fact, that's to my next point. The book itself, you know, once again, the Wizards team at D&D just really shines in the layout, the design, the art direction. It looks fantastic. It's just a good looking book. All of the 5th edition books from D&D have just been fantastic. Some really good artwork in here. You know, the color schemes, all the maroons and grays and blues and dark reds and it just looks fantastic, and it feels good. It just kudos. The fifth edition continues to knock it out of the park. When again, I don't know if I want to spend $50 on a role-playing game product, but if I have to, this is the kind of product I want in my hand. I mean, this is a really nice, well-produced, high-quality product, both in the quality of the writing, the adventure is laid out extremely well, the aesthetics, it's just really well done. So again, kudos. Now, the story itself, again, this is a realm of gothic dread horror. This is a supernatural gothic horror adventure. That doesn't mean it's not D&D, but it means that it's going to be a little bit different from your regular adventure. You're not going to go charge the castle, slay the dragon, and rescue the princess, or whatever. It's not Tolkien-esque. This is gothic. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula dropped, boom, right in the middle of the D&D. And it's excessively, this is the designer's own words, it's excessively open-ended. So much so that they have a table in the book that lists, hey, this area is probably good for this level of characters, this area is this level of characters. Just to kind of give DMs an idea of what to expect if characters like, well, we want to go over there. Now, the book says, look, don't railroad them, don't force them to go wherever, but, just so you know as a DM, this is kind of the level appropriate areas for them at any given time. So, but there's all sorts of dread, gothic dangers awaiting your players from werewolves to witches to whispering wraiths as they navigate this dangerous realm and attempt to bring relief to its inhabitants. But ultimately, what Curse of Strahd about, other than all the side adventures and people they meet and stuff they fight and creepy encounters they have, and all the exploration of the realm of Barovia, which it's its own realm. Okay, it's not like you're in the Forgotten Realms or you're in Greyhawk or you're in Dragonlance, Kryn, and you say, hey, I'm going to cross the border, and boom, suddenly I'm in Barovia. No, it's its own. It's been described as a realm, as a demiplane. You can only get there by magical, supernatural means, and you can only leave by magical or supernatural means. So at the beginning of the adventure, and there's multiple plot hooks provided to fit the style of the DM or the players or where their group is at any given moment to kind of fit that to get them into Barovia. But once they're there, ultimately, despite all the exploration and all the cool things that can happen and creepy things that can happen, it's ultimately the tale of the character's quest to hunt down and destroy the vampire wizard Strahd, who's a big bad guy, make no mistake. And he's the dread lord of the domain, and it's his efforts in turn to destroy or to corrupt the characters. Yeah, sure, he'll destroy them. He's powerful enough to destroy them. I mean, he could squash them like a bug the minute they show up. But he wants to corrupt them. He takes pleasure in corrupting people, especially good people. He likes to find their flaws and weaknesses and exploit that and turn people against each other. So many paths can and will wind in various directions before the final confrontation. But in the end, they will face Strahd. There's Castle Ravenloft. It's looming over the terrified village below. And look, is that a character on the battlements? A figure? I mean, that's what it's all about. So, and the success of the story will rise and fall on Strahd as a character, not just as a stat block. I mean, there's multiple pages. There's several, 4 or 5 maybe even pages they're given to talk about just how he ticks, what makes him work, and how to run him during the adventure. So, they don't want him to just be a stat block to defeat and get experience points for. So, and again, all of this takes place in the fog-surrounded realm of Barovia. It's a gothic realm. It's supernatural. It's creepy. Think of every oppressed, superstitious Eastern European village from old black and white horror films, and you basically have Barovia. I mean, it's just, people are making Evil Eye, and there's basically gypsies and fortune tellers, and don't go out at night, and wolves howling in the distance, and big fat full moons, and it's romantic but creepy and gothic all at the same time. So, and characters will encounter many frightening locations in Barovia. A windmill can end up being a menacing silhouette on the horizon with dangers inside. Is that bird flying overhead? Is that just a bird, or is it a were-raven? Does that village townhouse have a mind and sinister purpose of its own? Is that distance moaning the wind? Or is there something more fearful? Magic itself, the characters will find magic itself seems to behave horrifically in this dread realm. Um, it's also game-wise, it's worth remarking and noting that much of Curse of Strahd involves social interaction. Okay, so DMs and players that prefer role play, ROLE play, over role play, ROLL play, will love that. Okay, there's a lot of role playing and social interaction in this game, and there's tips that are included on how to advance character levels through milestones, which is something that's kind of creeping, if you will, more and more into D&D 5th edition, rather than just, hey, you kill stuff or you do stuff, you get XP and you level up. There's some of that in Curse of Strahd, but because of so much social interaction, to compensate for that and not quite as much combat, there's also not rules, but tips and guides for advancing characters through milestones in addition to just pure XP. So, are you horrified by horror? Do you feel intimidated by running a gothic D&D adventure or playing in one? Fear not. A section entitled Marks of Horror gives helpful notes on running a horror adventure in D&D, and there's plenty of notes and artwork and flavor text throughout the book that'll help you as well. So, and again, as I mentioned, there's multiple adventure hooks that are provided to kind of get your characters, your players into Barovia to kick things off. So again, I want to remark this is a gothic horror adventure. It's Bram Stoker, it's Dracula, it's the Wolfman, it's all these classic creepy movies and horror novels, romantic Victorian, gothic horror. I mean, there is combat. And then there's the kind of encounters that parties are used to from other games, but this is the realm. I mean, it's an ongoing oppressive dread, and that atmosphere is a foe and a character as much as any monsters or NPCs the parties may confront. So, I mean, think on this. The designers actually provided two possible ending scenarios. One is where the party prevails, and one where Strahd prevails. The wolf howls in the distance. I mean, they actually tell you if Strahd wins, here's what happens. I mean, so think on that. Does that intimidate you? Does it give you pause? I mean, it should a little bit. You should be like, whoa, that sounds kind of creepy, kind of dangerous. So that's and it's just a different feel. Out of the Abyss was very much about the Underdark and the atmosphere of the Underdark and the madness that was permeating the Underdark, sort of Alice in Wonderland meets, Call of Cthulhu kind of. Whereas, this is romantic gothic horror. So if you love D&D, but you want a little, something a little different, or if you love Ravenloft and are ready to jump back in there, that's what this is. And I think it's great that so far with D&D 5th edition, we've had, the dragons, Horde of the Dragon Queen, I think. So you had sort of the more typical Swords of Sorcery with dragons as a focus, and then you had Princes of the Apocalypse that kind of brought elemental evil into it, and then you had Out of the Abyss going back into the Underdark, and then now you've got Curse of Strahd, bringing the gothic horror again. So, they're showing, as they said to you, could tell with 5th edition when you're reading the player's handbook, they're really trying to stress that although D&D has a very strong Tolkien-esque fantasy roots, it doesn't have to be that. So, all right, so here we go. This is what everybody wants to know. Should you buy it? Is Curse of Strahd worth your time and money? All right, so as with my other reviews, I'm not going to offer a one-size-fits-all answer. I think that sells the product short, and it sells the wide spectrum of gamer types and interests that exist in our hobby short. I mean, there's a lot of different people, a lot of different interests and types of games they want to play. So here's a spectrum of recommendations instead. If you want to run or play in a classic, familiar, comfortable, Tolkien-esque fantasy RPG, hack and slash, sword and sorcery adventure, Curse of Strahd is not for you. I'm just going to let you, this is not for you. Just don't pick it up because you're not it's not what you want. Okay, I'm not saying don't ever try it, but I'm saying if you're dead set on that, you're like, I want, keep on the Borderlands, or I want, Dragonlance, or what, don't, it's not, this isn't what you want. And I'm not dissing on that. I love those kinds of adventures. Even after all these years, I never get tired of them. I'm just saying, to help you make your choice. If you're not even a role player, or you're not an active role playing gamer any longer, but if you love vampires and gothic horror and all the trappings, and you want to while away an evening or two absorbing D&D's take on it, regardless if you want to run or play in it, Curse of Strahd could be for you. Sure, why not? If you want a Ravenloft source book to create your own adventures in Barovia, Curse of Strahd might be for you, but I'm going to give you this caveat. You're going to have to put a lot of time into it, into extrapolating what's there and modifying it for your own purposes. This is an adventure, not a source book. But there are a lot of information on the settings, the atmosphere, locations, history, NPCs, and monsters, and that sort of thing. But this is not a source book. So if you're like, I don't want to run the Strahd game again. I've run it a million times since it came out in 1980s, and I just want to know more about Barovia. This probably isn't your book. If you want to run or play in a fully realized, well-written gothic horror RPG adventure with a lot of social interaction, in addition to combat, Curse of Strahd is for you. And finally, if you love Ravenloft and can't wait to play the 5th edition version, Curse of Strahd is absolutely for you. So thanks so much for watching and for listening. I would welcome your comments with your own experiences and hopes and desires, and maybe critiques of Curse of Strahd on this video. Don't forget there's a companion blog post with a photo gallery and all of this stuff there if you want to go give it a read, maybe go a little bit deeper. And don't forget that there's the free Death House Curse of Strahd intro adventure or mini adventure that's for free as a PDF from Wizards of the Coast. So, and if you like this kind of thing, these kind of reviews and everything, the best thing you can do to help me, A, is subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it if you do so. 2, leave it a like on YouTube and a comment. And then 3, kind of share it around. That helps me out a lot. But regardless, thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time on Shane Plays.